Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC Fight Night, Cara France versus Albazi, also known as UFC on ESPN 46, also known as UFC Vegas 74. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com, back from a week off, and with me, as always, is Keith Schillen, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. It was nice to have a weekend off, got to catch up on a few labor of love type projects that I do for Sherdog. Just get out a lot of evergreen content, talk about old school MMA in a way that you and I both love. But I'm going to say this cautiously. It almost feels good to be back on the grind. Back to that. I think there's UFC cards for the next 11 weeks or something straight. And they're getting us back into the weekly fight night grind with about as grindy of a weekly fight night as you're going to find in this Cara France versus Albazi card. Give me a letter grade for this one right off the jump.
I give it like a C. I'd like that the main event is flyweights. Usually we get like ranked flyweights buried on the prelims and stuff. So I'm excited about that.
I mean, the UFC could barely put Demetrius Johnson in a fight night headliner when he was maybe the best fighter in the world. Like, yeah, they're definitely getting some more love these days.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, I don't know if the casual fans will be as excited, but hardcore fans I think would be pretty excited to see flyweights. I mean the only person that would probably get me more buzz for a main event would probably be like a Bo Nickal main event. Other than that, I mean, why that's long overdue if you ask me.
I mean, honestly, I'd be fine with that, but I think Bo Nickal would probably be too much for Cara France and Albazi even at the same time. So
yeah, a little too much.
We're gonna meet in Fight Circus.
Well, wait till the Dano ever go. I've been surrounded by girls softball lately, so my daughter's softball. Shout out to my daughter's softball team playing for the state championship. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I'm sorry. They're in the semifinals, but the two top teams are playing each other, so probably the state championship. So, did Dana ever announce the big thing with Israel Adesanya? Was that coming up yet?
I haven't seen any big announcement, and I've been the guy on the news killer this week. So yeah,
okay, because that's gonna be the big announcement. Bo Nickal is that they're giving him to win the title.
Get it done now so Nickal can clean out the division in the first half of 2024 and then move up to light heavyweight. Yeah,
I got all the Bo Nickal references on early.
Outstanding. No, I mean the biggest announcement this past week was the upcoming Bellator versus Ryzen 2 card, which actually is super, super dope, but I'm not even going to go down that path because we have 13 UFC fights to talk about. I'm with you. I'd give this card about a C. I like the main event just because I'm really intrigued by Albazi, and Cara France is just yet another of the seemingly endless supply of very, very good flyweights who are exciting just about every time out. So it promises to be a great fight. The co-main, don't take this the wrong way. I love Alex Caceres. I love Daniel Pineda. I'm scared of Daniel Pineda. But a co-main event with two guys with double-digit losses that are both unranked is a rough look, even for a fight night card. But again, at least it should be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just do Jim Miller and Jared Gordon, being the Jared Gordon getting that like Paddy Pimblett buzz, and Jim Miller just being Jim Miller.
It is kind of surprising. Nobody understands. Nobody can chart the tides that guide the UFC's bout order. At least they buried the obligatory heavyweight fight, a ways down the card.
Yeah, but former heavyweight champion is like second fight of the night or something like that on this card.
Any other general thoughts before we dive right in?
No, let's get into it.
All right. We go to the light heavyweight division for the once made, now rescheduled PFL bragging rights fight that never happened, as it is Philipe Lins versus Maxim Grishin. Lins, the 37-year-old Brazilian, is 16-5 overall. He is 2-2 in the UFC since joining as the outgoing PFL heavyweight champ of their first season back in 2018. He's 2-2 in the UFC, but worth noting that he's 0-2 at heavyweight and 2-0 at light heavyweights. He lost to Andrei Arlovski and Tanner Boser in his first year with the promotion. Since then, he has racked up back-to-back wins over Marcin Prachnio and Ovent St. Preux. The most recent of those, the St. Preux win, was a 49-second knockout at the UFC Fight Night Andrade versus Blanchfield card in February. In between that, he has had a ridiculous litany of injury layoffs that have seen him canceled out of, I think, at least 6 or 7 bookings. But he's finally back in the cage. He looks to fight for twice in a calendar year for the first time since 2020. And greeting him will be fellow PFL expat Grishin. The 39-year-old Russian is 32, 9, and 2 overall. He is 2-2 in the UFC since joining as a 2-time PFL quarterfinalist. He made the playoffs at light heavyweight in the 2018 and 2019 season. Both times he fought to a draw in his quarterfinal, and due to PFL's unique playoff rules, he is the guy that got frozen out both times, and the other fighter advanced. My Russian is kind of rusty, but I assume at that point Grishin said "fuck this shit" and left the PFL for the UFC, where he has alternated wins and losses ever since. He fought most recently all the way back last February. That was at UFC 271 down here in Houston, where he was scheduled to take on. William Knight stepped in on short notice to fight him. Knight blew weight by a record-breaking 12 or 13 pounds or something. So they fought at a 218-pound catch weight, but he did beat Knight, and he's looking to make it 2 in a row. Odds here are fairly close, but Grishin is your favorite. He's minus 130, Lin's plus 110. Keith, this fight was supposed to happen last October. It was yet another of the fights that was booked for Lin's, and he had to withdraw from. I don't think it was a specific injury. He just failed to be cleared medically for undisclosed reasons. But now he's back. Who you got winning this one, and how?
Yeah, he failed to be cleared medically. Like, he must have thought he was still in the PFL. Like, that's like such a PFL thing to do. While you're talking, I was thinking about like Francis Ngannou. Imagine like his first fight in the PFL, some shit like that happens. That'd be so PFL.
It would. Oh my goodness, yes.
Who was the guy that Randy Couture was saying? Oh shoot, he's like
Ante D'Elia, that he wanted to see Ante D'Elia.
Yeah, that would sell pay-per-view. Yeah. Randy Couture is my all-time favorite fighter for all time.
Yep.
The guy has CTE. Like, what the hell was that, dude? Obviously, I'm just joking about him having CTE. I'm just joking. I should make jokes about that. I'm already off the rails.
It's either that or he is one hell of a company man.
Bear with me, guys. I was outside of the sun like 13 hours today. A redhead outside of the sun. I might have CTE now. Philipe Lin's, he's not the best athlete, but to his credit, he has looked much better at light heavyweight. Now, he hasn't beat the best guys, so I don't want to get too crazy, but his output has been better at light heavyweight. He's a counter striker with, I'd say, average hand speed. He showed some pop against Ovent St. Preux. I mean, he knocked out Ovent St. Preux. I don't know how much how much weight you put into that. He just throws some like kind of looping shots. He has some holes defensively. One, he keeps his chin high in the air, which is obviously concerning. He's always been open to leg kicks. I go back to like the Tanner Boser fight where he lost because Tanner Boser just was kicking out his legs. He has been adding takedowns to his game a lot lately, which I definitely like. He is a BJJ black belt. That doesn't really mean anything to me at this point. I'm just throwing that out there. Not like when we used to say BJJ black belt. Grishin, he's, for a guy that, he's not a guy, when we talk about light heavyweight, we talk about Johnny Walker and Alex Pereira moving up. We talk about these guys who are huge for the weight class. Maxim Grishin is another guy you can throw in. He's a big dude. He's long and lengthy. He's well rounded. He's pretty technically sound. He's a kickboxer that likes to counter strike. He does well to draw out attacks with feints. Good head movement that he kind of uses to land his counter shots. I like that he's been really working the body lately. I'd say his plus power in his hands. Kicks are a big part of his game. Teep kicks. He throws leg kicks, but they're more of the traditional like thigh kicks than they are the calf kicks. He can use his size and grind in the clinch, though he was overpowered at heavyweight against Marcin Tybura in the clinch. But that's a big part of Tybora's game is clinching and winning. He gets takedowns with trips and judo throws, upper body stuff, but he can shoot on the hips. And he showed pretty solid takedown defense. I mean, it was against Jordan Johnson. That was a while ago, but that's a pretty solid wrestler. Linz has looked much better at light heavyweight than heavyweight lately. But again, like he feasted on some pretty low level competition. I think this is a close matchup, but I picked Grishin the first time we broke it down. Now, Linz has fought since, and so that's why we didn't go right to the tape. But I want to stay with Grishin still. Like I'm not as confident as I was last time because I think Linz looked better at light heavyweight, but I still think Grishin's slightly better everywhere. I think he's got a big advantage if he gets to the clinch. I think we have a close affair, but give me Grishin by decision.
Yeah, I'm actually with you here. I'm leaning Linz as well. I'm sorry, I'm leaning Grishin as well. Just despite the fact that Grishin is the older guy, I feel more confident in him just physically going out there this weekend than Linz. I can't believe that Linz is now 37. I still think of him as this guy that came across from PFL at age 32 as, a reasonably mobile heavyweight who was a little undersized. And I was kind of excited for him to arrive. And his history of injuries has just been absolutely ridiculous. And for that reason, even now, as he prepares to fight for the second time this year, I'm just not confident in him. He does have the back-to-back wins over St. Preux and Prochnio, but as you pointed out, they aren't the highest level opponents, and the way he beat them, it's just not something that Grishin's going to let him do. If he lamps Grishin in under a minute, well, then I've learned something about Maxim Grishin, I guess. But I just expect that Grishin's probably going to be able to get clinch situations and rough Linz up there. He's gonna be taller, and as you pointed out, he's a big light heavyweight, and he uses that well when he's in clinch situations. Or he might just be able to keep Linz at distance with his kicks. I think he wins the in-game or the out-game against Linz here and wins a decision. And it probably won't be the most viewer-friendly experience, but give me Linz to survive, advance, and pick up another win in the UFC. We head now to the bantamweight division for a matchup between Damon Blackshear and Luan Lacerda. Blackshear, the 28-year-old North Carolina native by way of New Mexico, is 12-5-1 overall. He is 0-1-1 since joining the UFC as a standout in such Northeastern promotions as CFFC and CES. He fought to a draw with Youssef Zalal in his promotional debut last August, then came back in March of this year at UFC 285 and dropped a unanimous decision to Farid Basharat. He will look to pick up his first UFC win against an opponent who will say the same. Lacerda, the 30-year-old Brazilian, is 12-2 overall. He is 0-1 since joining the UFC as a former standout in LFA and a former champ in Judo Brazil. He debuted in January at UFC 283, dropping a unanimous decision to Cody Stamen. So two gentlemen looking for their first UFC win. Lacerda is the slight to moderate favorite to get it done. He is minus 145. Blackshear around plus 120. Keith, I don't know whether either of these guys has top 15 potential. Bantamweight is an incredibly tough division, but I will say this is a pretty high quality fight for two guys that have yet to win in the UFC. They both at least feel to me like they belong. Tell me whether you agree and how you see this fight going.
Yeah, I think Lacerda was a guy that I always thought belonged, but I think Blackshear has shown that he's pretty good. I mean, he took a fight on short notice, and then he got an absolute stud in his next fight. So, it's hard to really assess his game. Lacerda, I think is solid. I mean, he's a Muay Thai striker. He fights with this like partially high guard where he kind of keeps his right hand really high next to his head. A little flat-footed, and he stands a little tall for my liking, but he's a pretty sharp counter striker, though. He counters more with like winning hand battles, fighting in there, and then landing shots. Doesn't really slip shots too well. He does load up a little bit for my liking, and he's definitely a guy who prefers to be the bull. Like he's lost fights, but he's forced on his back foot. But he's got a really good kicking game. Hard kicks to the body. He checks leg kicks. He wants to get to the fight to the ground. He's a better wrestler than I thought he was. I mean, he took Cody Stamen down, which is a pretty good accomplishment. Showed off some good entries, and I actually thought he beat Stamen in their fight. Which
I'm glad. Good.
Well, you said the same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with Stamen. It wasn't like a robbery or anything, but just even early in UFC career, having a good fight with Cody Stamen. I mean, that's hard. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that he wants to get the fight to the ground. He'll even pull guard. I mean, he BJJ black belt. He has some slick back takes. He's got 10 submission wins on his record. Blackshear, he's a good athlete. Also fights with a high guard defense. Pretty fast hands. He can be wild. His hands tend to kind of, instead of staying at tight, they kind of wing a little bit. Big kicking game though. Likes teep kicks, calf kicks, spinning attacks. He will wrestle a lot, though he isn't like the greatest wrestler. He's more of a win scrambles using his speed and athleticism than being technical. Weak takedown defense overall. He has 8 submission wins. He attacks subs off his back. He has some pretty good back takes. He does need to improve his in takedown defense, where he'll end up on top instead of going to his back and struggling to get back up. He did gas out against Yusuf Salal, but that was one he did take on really short notice. So I kind of echo what you said. I think both guys are probably better than I originally thought. I am going to go with Lacerda, though. I think we are going to have some really fun grappling exchanges, but I think Lacerda is going to win those grappling just by being a more technically sound grappler. I think he'll be the one who gets the dominant positions, gets on top more. Give me Lacerda by decision.
Yeah, I agree with you on basically all points there. I think part of the problem for me in looking for ways that Blackshear would be likely to win this is that, as you pointed out, he isn't a technical wrestler so much as a guy that has come up with ways to initiate scrambles that he just trusts himself to come out on the better end of. And that served him well at the CFFC, CES level. I don't know how well it's going to go for him against UFC level bantamweights. And you pointed out he likes kicking a lot. It forms a significant part of his offensive repertoire, which makes sense on some levels. He's got long reach with his arms and legs. He's a very tall bantamweight, so he wants to use that to his advantage, but he has the unbridled kicking game of a guy that wishes you would take him down, which again, that's worked for him on the regional level. I don't know how it'll work on the UFC level, and especially don't know how it'll work against a guy like Lacerda, who, as you point out, is just a fundamentally much more solid grappler and a guy that's shown willingness to kind of calm down in scrambles, find and assume a top position and go to work. And if he can keep things calm against Blackshear, I think he will win most of those scrambles. If Blackshear tries to play keep away on the feet and just try to chip away at Lacerda from range, he might be able to do so, but he's going to probably have to curtail his kicking quite a bit, and that won't be a very comfortable thing for him either. So long way around to say that I'm with you here. Probably Lacerda by decision. Should be a real fun fight. Strawweights are up next as Elise Reed takes on Jinh Frey. Reed, the 30-year-old New Jersey native, is 6-3 overall. She is 2-3 since joining the UFC as the outgoing CFFC strawweight champ. She has alternated wins and losses in all of her UFC fights, all of which have taken place at 115 pounds, except for her debut, which was on short notice at flyweight against Sijara Eubanks. She fought most recently in February at UFC 284, tapping to a rear naked choke from Loma Lookboonmee in the second round. She'll look to get back on track against Frey. The 38-year-old Texan is 11-8 overall, 2-4 since joining the UFC as a former Invicta atomweight champ. She is on a 2-fight losing streak right now. Appeared most recently back in November, getting knocked out early in the first round by Poliana Viana. Prior to that, she had lost a close split decision to Vanessa Demopoulos last June. So Frey, the former atomweight standout, badly in need of a win at this point, and she is not favored to get it done, but not too far off the mark, as Reed is minus 130, Frey around plus 110. I can't believe I'm about to pick someone to win a fight who got tapped out by Loma Lookboonmee in her last appearance, but I think Reed is a rough matchup for Frey at this point. Jinh Frey is 38 years old, working in two of the fastest divisions in this. I mean, the two fastest divisions in the sport, atom weight and straw weight. So her continued relevance and generally, competitive outings are a testament to her conditioning. Obviously, just look at her, and her dedication to her craft. Also, probably due in some way to her having built a fight style that never required speed in the first place. I mean, I don't mean this to be mean, but she's about as boring an atom weight as you could possibly dream up in the lab. Like, her whole style is just so buttoned down, built around turning her fights into either a low volume kickboxing match at distance or a really grinding conservative clinch battle. I mean, her combined 50 minutes of fights with Mina Grusander aged me by years.
I thought she lost both those fights too, but she won both.
And I don't remember how I scored them.
She's the Andrei Arlovski of women strawweights.
Exactly, but she came out fully formed as Andrei Arlovski from the jump. She never even had the Andrei Arlovski was a wild man until he got lamped a bunch of times. I mean, we'll talk about him later, but Frey's problem at the UFC strawweight level is, partially the same problem she had at Invicta, that unless somebody really hurts the other fighter, she just doesn't throw enough volume to win rounds, or to feel secure in winning rounds. And then furthermore, she has the problem at the UFC level that, as jacked as she looks, actual UFC strawweights just tend to be bigger and stronger than she is. And in Reed, I kind of thought her problem after her first UFC fight or two was that she wasn't physically strong enough, but I turned out to be wrong on that. Like, she's not huge, but has proven to be pretty stout and hasn't been bullied by most of her opponents. And I just think that's going to spell bad news for Frey here. Reed's a good boxer herself and throws more volume than Frey does. So if this turns into that kind of Frey fight, I think she probably just loses 2 rounds out of 3. Or honestly, it turns into a fight where Frey should have lost all 3 rounds, but loses a split decision because scoring weirdness. Or if Frey decides to make it grimy and clinchy, or if Reed decides that, I think Reed's going to be able to wear Frey down. She's younger, fresher. She probably hasn't quite even peaked yet as a fighter, where Frey definitely has. So give me Reed to win a decision here, where not a whole lot will be unpredictable, except maybe the final score tallies.
Yeah, this is a fight. Jinh Frey, she's a southpaw that she's pretty technically sound. I'll say that. She's a counter striker that, when she's letting her hands go, does well at picking up her opponent's timing and rhythm and beating them to the point of contact. The problem is you mentioned, she is historically low output. To her credit, she did pick up the pace a bunch in her fight against Vanessa Demopoulos, but and I thought she won that fight against Vanessa Demopoulos, which is good. I looked at MMA decisions; it was 11-1 on MMA decisions for Frey, but she still lost that fight because, like you mentioned, you said, "Oh, she could win a split decision," and you had this pause. And you're like, because, and you said, scoring's weird, or just because she's Jinh Frey and those are all her fights go, Despite being small, I actually think her best position is probably grinding in the clinch, where she wears her opponents, except she did get smashed by Loma Lookboonmee in the clinch. But in credit, we both know how good.
Yeah.
Loma's really good.
Loma's a world Muay Thai champ, finally fighting someone her own size for once in Frey. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's good against girls bigger than Frey. So Frey can wrestle, and her style of wrestling, she'll drop down on a single from inside the clinch, run the pipe, but she isn't really the best wrestler. She will shoot for some takedowns, and her entries are pretty good. To her credit, she shows some solid top game against Gloria DePaulo. She has looked to pass position on the ground, which I like. She has shown some solid takedown defense despite being undersized. But if pinned against her back because of that lax size, she struggles to get back up. And a big concern I have is her chin. I mean, she was knocked out by Polyana Viana in her last fight, and Viana isn't known for her striking. She's the grappler. Now you move over to Reed. Reed is a high volume striker that presses the action, kind of tight boxing, works behind a jab. I like her straight right. I think she has some plus power. Now she has a lot of defensive holes. Once she keeps her chin high in the air, because of her traditional boxing style, she's open to calf kicks. Go back to like the Melissa Martinez fight where she had a lot of success kicking Elise Reed's leg. She also will want to grind in the clinch a lot. She doesn't. We've talked about this past week. She doesn't need to learn how to like wrestle pummel better instead of just going always traditional like Muay Thai clinch. Her offensive wrestling is improving. I mean, she hit some trips on Melissa Martinez in that fight, and I like her ground and pound, but she's a weak defensive wrestler, and submission defense is an issue. Like we talked about in the past, she almost got submitted by Hillary Rose, who isn't UFC level, and then she got subbed by Loma Lubumi. Now we just talked about how good Loma Lubumi is, but not in the grappling game. That's not it's not where she's known. So that obviously doesn't look good. She struggles to get back up to her feet. And going back to like the Sam Hughes fight when she was on the bottom getting pinned down, she showed no urgency to try to get back to the feet. So I'm really torn on this fight. I hate picking Frey because she's so inconsistent, but I hate picking Reed because she's so weak on the ground. And Frey could win if she just turns this into a wrestling match. But Frey has ignored her wrestling at time. So I'm with you. I you know me, I don't check the betting odds. I assumed that Frey was going to be the favorite, so I thought I was taking an upset here. Reed has the power advantage. She has the volume. I say Reed wins the decision.
Next up, the bantamweights take the cage once more, as it is Daniel Santos versus Johnny Munoz Jr. This fight was actually scheduled to take place at UFC 288 back on May 6th. It had to be postponed because of an injury to Santos, which apparently was minor, since they're going to fight again just 4 weeks later. Do you have any different thoughts about that fight than you did 4 weeks ago? All right, then.
Yeah.
All right, then just buckle in. I will plug in that old footage. And hey, we finally disagreed on a fight on this card now. First up at UFC 288 is a men's bantamweight matchup between Daniel Santos and Johnny Munoz Jr. Santos, the 28-year-old Brazilian, is 11-2 overall. He is 1-1 since joining the UFC just a little over a year ago. He debuted with a unanimous decision loss to Julio Arce last April, came back in October and knocked out John Castaneda late in the second round. He will look to make it 2 straight against Munoz, who is also looking for a second straight win. The 30-year-old from Southern California, like greater Riverside area, is 12-2 overall. He's 2-2 since joining the UFC as a former King of the Cage bantamweight champ. He actually debuted in the UFC on at featherweight, lost a unanimous decision to Nate Maness, who it was at featherweight, but Maness is really a bantamweight himself. But at any rate, he's alternated losses and wins. Lost to Maness, beat Jamie Simmons, lost to Tony Gravely, and most recently, last November at UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Lemos took a unanimous decision over Ludwig Sholinian. Odds here favor Santos. He is minus 155, Munoz plus 130. Keith, bantamweight, it's a deep division. Alternating wins and losses will keep you on roster, but it's certainly not going to get you within smelling distance of the rankings. Who takes a step forward here, and how do you think the fight plays out?
I think it's a good fight. I really do. I think this is a fun fight to start the card. I like both guys. I think they're both really fun action guys. Munoz needs to improve his striking, but I do think he is improving his striking. I would say that striking is probably plan B for him. But I like some of the things he's been doing. He's been working behind a jab that's pretty crisp. I do like that he doubles it up. That's one thing to help a guy to close the distance by doubling up the jab. He throws like this 2 straight down the pipe. He showed some flashes of power against Ludwig in his last fight. He has some holes defensively. One, he backed straight up. Tony Gravely smashed him with a big shot, so he's got to watch his chin. He's good. He's a good grappler. Like he gets in the clinch. He looks for upper body takedowns. He also can shoot like a nice reactionary double if you pressure him, get through your hips. I think he's an extremely good grappler. He's very good at winning scrambles. He's won many jiu-jitsu tournaments and competed in some good tournaments. Very strong top game, slick back takes. He's got 7 submission wins on his record. And then in a fight where you think it'd be weird that you have the grappler in a fight against Ludwig, he shows some really strong takedown defense against a pretty good wrestler. Now, Santos, the thing about Santos is just how athletic he is. He's extremely athletic, quick hands, I'd say plus power. I love that he works the body. He's got a very strong kicking game. He has good body kicks. He does a lot of spinning attacks. Like he loves spinning attacks, which is exciting. One of the guys who's actually pretty good at spinning attacks. I love his step in knees. He's got good volume. His pressure broke Castaneda. Due to some of his defensive flaws, he got beat up by Julio Arce, but that's also a very tough fight. Early on in your UFC career, take on like a true veteran like Julio Arce. But he showed off a great chin against Castaneda, just kept marching forward. The reason why he shows a chin is he does have a lack of head movement, but to his credit, he was trying to move it more against Castaneda, but he kept dipping to one side, and that's why Castaneda, kicked him. I think it was maybe two high kicks he hit him with, some clean high kicks. He also keeps his chin high in there. He's not a wrestler, but he's more of a grappler, but he's pretty good at winning scrambles, and he has 2 subs on his record. Like I definitely don't give him the advantage in the grappling here, but at least he's got something. Yeah, like I said, I think this is going to be a really fun fight. Starting the card off at bantamweight is always a good idea. The only thing that would be better if there was a flyweight fight to start the evening. I'm going to go with Munoz. I'm going to go with a slight upset. I think he's improved on his feet, though I do favor Santos there, but I still think he should have a huge advantage on the ground. I think he wins some scrambles. I think he eventually locks in a submission too. I'm going to say Munoz gets a submission. Give me Munoz by second round sub.
All right. I like the breakdown there. I think I might not be as high on Munoz's ground game. It looked spectacular at the King of the Cage level, and it has looked spectacular in bursts in the UFC. Like he looked fantastic. He overwhelmed Jamie Simmons on the ground. But then against Nate Maness, he was getting takedowns, but really struggling to do much with it once he had him down there. Like he basically
Maness is a big dude though.
Maness is a big dude, and that may have been part of it.
Didn't he go down a weight class after that too, which is really crazy?
Maness went down to bantamweight, and he's even fought at flyweight since then, which is wild. Because
that's what I was saying. Like, he went down, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's.
I feel bad. We're only on the first fight, and I've interrupted you like 12 times already. But the guy who's doing the shots is like, I'm dying after this card. But the liver screaming like just watch Ian Parker's show. It's 10 minutes long. Shout out to my boy Ian Parker.
We love you, Ian.
One of the best dudes in the industry. Good.
Against Maness, he would get the takedowns, but struggled to do more than just enough not to get stood up. So the Tony Gravely fight wasn't long enough to really draw conclusions, but I heavily favored Gravely in that one just because I figured that even if it didn't end in a minute, Munoz was going to have trouble getting the fight to the ground, and he's going to be kind of stuck on the feet against a hard hitter. I could see that happening here as well, where he wants to get Santos to the ground. I don't know if he'll be able to, or I don't know if he'll be able to and actually set up shop. Like I could see him getting takedowns and Santos just initiating scrambles and never really letting him secure top position. On a card where in a little while we're going to be talking about Movsar Evloev, who's kind of a master of that. That's sort of what comes into my mind here. If Munoz is able to get takedowns, certainly I could see you being right here and him getting the sub. I am going to lean the other way, that Santos manages to keep it on the feet enough to show up some of Munoz's still developing striking game there. Maybe hurt him a few times and take a decision here. So give me Santos by decision. But already we got an upset pick and a little bit of disagreement. Buckle up, folks. Next up is the lone heavyweight fight on the card as former multiple-time champion Andrei Arlovski takes on Don'Tale Mayes. Arlovski, the 44-year-old Belarusian, is 34-21 with 2 no contests overall. He is 23-15 with 1 no contest across multiple stints in the UFC. He is 13-11 with 1 no contest since returning this most recent time. He is coming off a loss. He got choked out in the first round by Marcos Rogerio de Lima back in October at UFC Fight Night Cater versus Allen. That obviously wasn't a good look, but prior to that, he had been on a 4-fight win streak, believe it or not. So Arlovski looking to get back on track, remain strangely peripherally relevant in this division against Mayes. The 31-year-old Kentuckian is 9-5 with 1 no contest overall. He is 2-3 with 1 no contest after joining the UFC as a 3-time contestant on Dana White's Contender Series. He fought on the first 3 seasons, finally got signed after his 3rd appearance. He also was coming off a loss. It was a unanimous decision against Augusto Sakai back at UFC Fight Night Munoz versus Allen in February. Prior to that, he had a no contest against Hamdi Abdel Wahab last July. That was, in fact, a unanimous decision in which Abdel Wahab used him like a tackling dummy for 15 minutes, but then tested positive for an entire veterinary store worth of horse steroids. Odds on this one are fairly close, but Mayes is your slight favorite. He's minus 125. Arlovski plus 105. Keith, the disrespect, the great Arlovski, plus money against Don'Tale Mayes. You taking the upset here? Who's got this one?
Yeah, imagine if you're Andrei Arlovski, you're a former, UFC champion, baddest man on the planet. Before anybody I know Fado was at that time.
Yeah.
I'm just, called it by Mike Goldberg and all this. And now you're buried on the prelims and you're underdog to Don'Tale Mayes. Like, dude, it's not hanging up. Like, you had a great career.
He had like 3 different careers, and at least 2 of them were great.
Yeah. I don't know who's doing the UFC Belarus booth, but like, dude, just slide right into that position and do your thing. Be the color guy for. I feel like we've just broken down these 2 guys so many times and nothing changed. Like, I always have notes and I try to like update my notes with things I see when these guys fight. And like, I don't know if I've updated these 2 guys' notes in about 5 fights. Like, nothing's new. Arlovski is at this point in his career. He's 44 years old. Like we talk about, heavyweight being the age where you can, carry on much longer in your career than usual. But like the guy's he's old for heavyweight. He's 44.
We have thought his chin was shot for literally a decade at this point.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely get to that. So he's a low output counter striking boxer. He fights behind a high guard, keeps tight inside boxing, but his hand speed is really gone. And that was the thing with Arlovski. In his prime was his hand speed. He has, and we've talked about this at length, he has this magic to get guys to fight him at his snail's pace. He does this to conserve his energy, to protect his chin. We've given up on his chin, then it came back, then it was gone again, then it came back, then it was gone again. And I'm not sure, it might be gone again. He was quickly dropped in his last fight by Marco Rogerio de Lima, and then he was submitted. So, what were you going to say?
I was just letting out a sigh. I'll elaborate, when I talk about this fight.
Yeah. Arlovski has, I've said this before, he has no punching power for heavyweight. Obviously, I wouldn't want to get punched by Andrei Arlovski, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's been almost 20 fights since he's had a knockout. His best position is to have a really low output, distant kickboxing game where it's very Keelan Chikagian, where not many strikes are getting landed from distance, or get all the way in, clinch, grind. He's an okay wrestler and he's an okay grappler. But if we're being honest, when it comes to Andrei Arlovski's grappling, they always talk about his grappling and they'll show like, oh, here's a highlight. And it's like him heel hooking Tim Sylvia, like it's got to be close to 20 years ago. I mean, it was I mean, I don't know how many years ago. It was 16, 17, 18 years ago. I mean, it might have been 20. Was it 20 years ago?
It was 18 years ago. It was
18,
early
okay,
2005.
18 years ago. Yeah.
Like that heel hook is like old enough to like vote and, you know, serve in the military, you know, buy cigarettes next year, and it probably should buy some. Yeah.
Yeah. It's time to give the kid a briefcase and a tie and say, well, son, you're on your own now. I mean, if we're being honest, like Arlovski's grappling it hasn't been relevant in at least 10 years. And then he was just quickly submitted by Marco Rogerio de Lima. In fairness, he might have been a little rocked in that, so it was more of a club and sub. But then you move over to Dontel Mays. He's a massive dude, but he's not the greatest athlete. He does a lot of moving and he throws some like flying knees, but it's not a sign of athleticism. It's more like poor fight IQ. I think of it more like Josh Parisian doing spinning attacks. Like it's something he does, but that doesn't make him like a good athlete. He likes to fight at both stances. He's got good power, but he telegraphs because he drops his hands and he throws these big looping haymakers. He throws a lot of lead uppercuts, which you know I hate. He obviously has that Kentucky judo background, whatever that is.
With the Kentucky Judo Federation.
Yeah. He got a few clinch takedowns against Josh Parisian, but his wrestling is poor. I mean, his takedown defense is bad. He plays BJJ off his back. When he did take Parisian down, to his credit, he was looking to advance in position, and he almost got a crucifix, which I liked, but his cardio is bad. He's gassed out in the pass. I was thinking about this when I was like thinking about who's going to win this matchup. This might be the worst fight since Ed Herman versus Zach Cummins. I think I'd rather recap Santos and Munoz again, a preview it a third time, than like watch this. I might not watch this fight. I might like just recap it but not watch it. I'm gonna go with Mace, and I'm gonna go with Mace for one reason. I really thought about taking Arlovski, but I'm gonna go with Mace for one reason. Like I know he has power. And when I break down these guys' skill set, is really the only thing these two guys do good combined. Like Arlovski's not going to hurt him. So I'm going to go with that. Arlovski's chin might be finally completely gone. I'm going to go with that. So either we get an early knockout by Mays, or we get a terrible fight. So I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to say Mays knocks him out in the first round.
I am going to disagree with you, but damn if I don't hope that I'm wrong on this one. Because, oh my goodness, I agree. I've said this to you before on our previews. Anyone who's watched our show a few times knows this. When I'm talking about low-level fighters, guys that I'm not sure belong in the UFC, I will ask myself, what do they do? What single thing do they do at a UFC level? And you're right. The best individual thing that either of these guys brings to the table right now, other than intangibles, other than Arlovski's weird hypnosis, is that Mays has average power for UFC heavyweight. I don't even think he has plus power. He has average power for a 6'6", 260-pound guy. But that's better.
That's fair.
That's better than anything Arlovski brings at this point, again, other than that intangible. And it's worth noting that, Arlovski was on a 4-fight win streak coming into the Marcos Rogerio de Lima fight, but it was against a couple of the least hard-hitting heavyweights in the division. It really wasn't against anyone who was going to test his chin severely. I think that's worth noting. Vandera, Sherman, they're not heavy hitters in the heavyweight division. And then when he got in against Lima hurt him bad, and then jumped on, got the sub. What I was going to say when you were doing your breakdown is, I'm like you. My notes on Arlovski have not changed in the time we've been doing this show, and my mental notes have not changed on him in probably 10 years. But he's made me change my notes on other people, because after that fight, I had to cross out De Lima is the worst grappler in the UFC, and I had to say worst defensive grappler in the UFC. Because So damn it, Arlovski, you're making me do work here. Give me Arlovski to win a dreadful fight.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Mays is going to spend 15 minutes looking to kind of leap into range, land one huge haymaker, or catch Arlovski coming forward and maybe catch him with a lead or a rear hand uppercut. If he does any of those things, Arlovski is going nighty night, and I'll be secretly happy my pick was wrong. But I'm saying that's the outside chance, and we get the slight upset here as Arlovski gets back on the winning track and says something in the post-fight presser like, I could see myself fighting for another 5 years, that makes us all die a little bit inside.
You know what May's power is? I think you're right. Like it's not great, but it's that kid you played Little League with that was like fat. So I'm not saying Mays is fat, but I mean by that it's like you played for Little League and he'd always strike out, but then every once in a while he'd catch the ball and you'd be like, oh shit, and he'd crush it.
Oh yeah.
Like,
no, I totally knew that kid. Next up, yet another men's bantamweight matchup on this card, as it is John Castaneda versus the debuting Muin Gafurov. Castaneda, the 31-year-old Minnesota native, is 19-6 overall. He is 2-2 since joining the UFC out of Combate Global. He fought most recently last October, getting knocked out late in the second round by Daniel Santos, who also appears on this card. Prior to that, he had won back-to-back fights over Eddie Wineland and Miles Johns. He had been scheduled to take on Mateus Mendonça. Mendonça dropped out of this fight within the last couple days. So on fairly short notice, in steps Gafurov. The 27-year-old from Tajikistan, who goes by Tajik, so his nickname, I guess, is accurate, is 18-4 overall. This will be his debut, of course. He fought on the Contender Series back in 2021, where he lost to Chad Anheliger. So they sent him back down to the minors. He picked up 2 knockout wins in LFA in his most recent outing back in October, winning the LFA bantamweight title, and he now steps in for his UFC debut on short notice. Perhaps due in part to that short notice, he is the underdog. Castaneda minus 135, Gafurov plus 115 in a fairly close fight. Well, we've got a American of Mexican descent who goes by Sexy Mexi. I mean, part of that's a matter of opinion. We have a Tajikistan fighter who goes by Tajik. In the battle of bland nicknames, who wins the fight?
Is nickname the Sexy Tajik?
It's not, which is, I mean, it's a shame. He seems like a perfectly good-looking guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like him short.
It's so funny that the Sexy Mexi, if like, I don't follow John Castaneda too well, and sometimes you lose track of where certain guys are from. You said he's from Minnesota. If you gave me like 25 guesses of what state he's from, I don't know if I'd ever land on Minnesota. Like, I would have said Arizona, Texas, California.
And I don't know if he was born there. Maybe
Florida.
it's the Roger Huerta thing. He's like, Roger Huerta from where? He's training alone with Dave Manet in like a barn somewhere. Like, what?
I never would have said Minnesota. You think Minnesota, you think Brock Lesnar. It's like that stereotype. So
TJ DeSantis was right. When you start looking, everybody's from Minnesota.
Yeah, there you go. Castaneda, I mean, he's a southpaw who's kind of lengthy. Like, he's got longer arms than you think, which is surprising that he struggled with the length of Nathaniel Wood. But to his credit, he looked solid against Miles Johns. But Johns simply isn't the stud that we thought he was. So I don't know how much stock I take in that. He's got pretty good volume. He's got decent power. You go back to like his last 3 fights. He hurt Eddie Wineland. He hurt Miles Johns. He hurt Daniel Santos. He fights out of both stances, but I definitely think he's much better from the southpaw stance. Straight shots down the pipe. He's got a beautiful straight left. I love his kicks to the body. I like his high kick. It's quick, not a lot of tells. He likes to be the one kind of pressing the action. Like when Daniel Santos pressing him back, he struggled with that. He's a sneaky wrestler, decent grappler. He's got some good ability to win scrambles, some good submissions. He's got 7 subs on his record. One concern I had is that he gassed out against Daniel Santos, but I think that was him trying to finish the fight. Like, he was going out when he had Santos hurt to try to end it. So that might have been a big reason why he slowed down. Gafurov, very basic style to his game, but he's very good at it. He sits on his punches. He wings overhand rights, left hooks, uh, throws everything with power. He throws a lot of kicks, though they are naked. They're going to be open to counter, and he loves spinning back kicks. And he won his last fight by a spinning back kick to the stomach of his opponent. He throws a lot of stuff, but they're too close a distance. He likes to follow his stuff up to his wrestling, to his entries. He's a two-time world champion in combat sambo. He's got 7 submission wins. And on top in the ground and pound, he's very Fedor Emelianenko style, where he's like he throws to go around your guard or even to lift your hands up, and he just punches through it because it still like hurts to block with your hands. I kind of had to rush tape study on Gafurov because I saw this change like last minute.
Yeah,
and it's a little concerning. So I don't know if I have the best grasp on him. I'm worried about his cardio for 2 reasons. One, he hasn't been to many decisions in his career, and 2, he's taking this fight on really short notice. But that said, I'm still picking him. I'm going with the upset. I think he closes the distance with hard hooks. He uses it to get to the takedowns, and he spends a lot of time on top just using his wrestling. I'll go with Gafurov in an upset decision win.
I can definitely see it working out that way. I feel as though Gafurov has the skills and the physical tools and potential to be a top bantamweight, but just hasn't put it together in a really impressive performance for whatever variety of reasons. He was a very good fighter in one championship who just seemed to come out on the wrong end of decisions in most of his biggest fights, and not weird robbery decisions. He just flat out didn't do enough to win in those. On the Contender Series, when he fought back in 2021, he was one of the biggest favorites that season. I think he was like minus 600 or something against Chad Henniger, and he just rightfully lost that fight. Like, he seems to have put it together in his last couple fights in LFA. Like, he has just developed a level of urgency, aggression, killer instinct that is letting him finish pretty decent fighters that probably would have made it to decision against him a few years ago. So if he's turned the corner and the short notice isn't going to weigh on him too badly, like it's not going to tax his gas tank too badly, I agree. This has upset written all over it. Having said that, I'm coming around on Castaneda as well. He's a better fighter than I thought he was when he arrived in the UFC from Combate. Like, he came to the UFC out of Combate. His last fight in Combate was against Marcelo Rojo, who, I mean, he was in the UFC for a solid cup of coffee there, but wasn't a great fighter. And he's like 300 years old. But Castaneda, he's a dangerous fighter and he's a lot of fun. Even his last fight against Daniel Santos, he laid the wood on Santos in the first round and almost won that thing late in the first round. Santos ended up coming back and winning, but I thought he showed a lot of potential there. Give me Castaneda in this one. Maybe Gafurov puts it on him early, and Castaneda is the one who has to come back as Gafurov tires later in the fight. But I like his variety of offensive weapons, and I'm a little sketchy about Gafurov coming up on this short of notice. So I'm going to go with the slight favorite here, Castaneda by decision. Next up at UFC Vegas 74, and at least as the card is currently constituted, the top prelim is a welterweight matchup between Abubakar Nurmagomedov and Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Nurmagomedov, the 33-year-old Dagestani, is 17-3-1 overall. He is 2-1 since joining the UFC as a former standout from the first season of PFL. He signed with the UFC right out of that season, but due to a variety of injuries, visa problems, and COVID restrictions, he's only fought 3 times in the almost 5 years since then. He's fought most recently last October, taking a unanimous decision over Gaji Omargadzhiev in a fight that taxed the abilities of our text play-by-play writer, Jay Petrie, as he had to write Nurmagomedov and Omargadzhiev about 300 times in 15 minutes. But nonetheless, that was his second win in a row. He looks to make it 3 in a row against Zaleski dos Santos. The 36-year-old Brazilian, who nicknamed himself Capoeira, is 23-7 overall. He is 9-3 in the UFC. He hasn't fought in well over a year and a half. His last fight was way back in October of 2021 at UFC 267, where he laid a strong contender for beatdown of the year on Benoit Saint Denis. He has not fought since. Meanwhile, Saint Denis recovered from that beating enough to go 2-0 since then. So it's been a while. But yeah, he steps back in here for the first time in about 20 months. And despite the layoff, is a slight favorite. The closest available odds have him at -115, Nurmagomedov at -110. So close to a pick 'em. But Zaleski dos Santos is the slightest of favorites. Keith, were you excited about Nurmagomedov 4.5 years ago when he signed with the UFC, or did you just think he was just another guy? And has any of your opinion changed on that since then? And let me know your breakdown of the fight.
Yeah, we've broken them down a bunch of times. No, I was never as high as him as other ones. Like, he's not Umar Nurmagomedov or oh god, what's the Bellator's
Usman
Nurmagomedov. Yeah, those guys are like really good. Yeah, he's coming around on me a little bit. Like, I definitely don't see him as a title contender or anything like that. I mean, you said he's the underdog right now to Zaleski.
Yeah.
So that kind of, but you know, take that for what it's worth at this point. Not that I mean, Zaleski's good, but he's not a world beater. Zaleski. He's a good athlete and he hits hard. He's a good striker. He can fight out of both stances. Nice snap on shots. I've talked about this past week. He can overthrow his strikes, leaving open to counters. But he's tough as hell, and keeps coming. He likes a lot of spinning attacks, flying knees. That's due to his capoeira style. But he's very hittable. He's had issues with his chin based on his reckless style. I mean, Lyman Good, Li Jingliang, Muslim Salikov, they've all hurt him. He can wrestle a little bit. I mean, when he needs to, when he has to show his fight IQ. And when he went against Curtis Millender, he turned into a wrestler. I mean, that was a while ago, really long time ago. But my point is just like that obviously was the best avenue for victory for him. The issue is he can offensive wrestling, but his defensive wrestling is extremely poor. He's been taken out 19 times so far in the UFC, which is obviously concerning. Now, Abubakar, he's a southpaw, busy jab. He uses it to set up his hard punches, but all his striking he does is just close the distance and wrestle. He's a good wrestler, constantly shooting and reshooting. If he gets you to the ground, strong top game. He has been accused in the past of laying and praying. I've probably been one of them that says that. He doesn't have the takedown defense you would expect from Nurmagomedov. Like, he's been taken down by lesser opponents, but to his credit, he's hard to hold down. He has a submission game. He has slowed down in the past, which is concerning. Like, Jared Gooden was a fight that he's winning fairly easily, but he was gassed in really late. So I think Zaleski is the better fighter. I really do that. Like, if you took the whole division, you laid off all the fighters, and you had each fighter fight every one of these guys, I think Zaleski would have a better record than Nurmagomedov. That said, I just think this is one of the fights he would lose. I just think this is a bad stylistic matchup for him. Nurmagomedov is a good wrestler, and the one huge glaring weakness of Zaleski, which always been his Achilles heel, is his defensive wrestling. Like I said, I'm not high on Nurmagomedov. I think of the Nurmagomedovs, he's one of the weaker ones. But I think he gets a takedown in each round, and he stays on top. And I think Nurmagomedov wins the decision.
I want to disagree with you. I'll say that right off the bat. For one thing, because if I pick Dos Santos and he wins, we got a better fight than if Nurmagomedov wins.
Oh, absolutely. Totally. Oh, yeah. I'm rooting for Zaleski to win.
And if this fight were 5 months after Dos Santos' last fight, I'd feel better about it. But I mean, he hasn't fought in over a year and a half. He's been injured. It's been a long time since Dos Santos beat anybody good. That's the best way I can put it. I mean, the Benoit Saint Denis win has aged surprisingly well as Denis has gone on to win fights, but he's been winning them at lightweight. You go back, the Sean Strickland and Max Griffin wins have aged well, but at the time they really weren't any great shakes. Like I used to hold up Dos Santos as an example of how incredible welterweight is because you can be someone like him and win 7 fights in a row and not
Yeah.
even be in the rankings yet. But part of it is just that he kind of feasted on some of the more limited fighters in the welterweight division. Like I do think we've seen his best come and go.
Can I tell you his best win? Probably
Sure.
at that time, not what age well and this and that, but like for the time, it was probably beating Lyman Good.
I agree because that was right around the time Lyman Good was kind of making a turn and
Yeah, that Ryan Bellator and everything. Good.
yeah,
That was UFC on Fox 25, Wyman versus Gaston.
almost
That
6
was
years ago.
Yeah, 2017, July 22nd, 2017.
Yeah, oh my, that's wild, man. So Nurmagomedov, and for those who might not remember, he's the original guy named Nurmagomedov that they tried to tell us was Khabib's brother, and he actually is like his first cousin. He's really related to him more closely than most of the other pack of Nurmagomedovs. Like, it's one thing when you got a Dagestani guy and he's got the foreguard all around, but he's got the foreguard and the widow's peak, so you can tell he is like closely related to Khabib.
Yeah, that's good.
But despite that, he's more on the level. He reminds me more of like a Rustam Khabilov type as a fighter, one who wants to wrestle and smother and maybe lay and pray a little bit, but doesn't quite have the top level athleticism of a Khabib Nurmagomedov or an Islam Makhachev to make a run off of.
Yeah, I totally agree.
The problem with that is pretty much everything Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos likes to do offensively is going to make it easier for Nurmagomedov to get him down. Like spinning shit is exactly what the doctor ordered if you want to wrestle but you don't have a great first step. Because if Nurmagomedov can get his hands on you, he's strong as a bull and he can finish. Like he has all the techniques, he knows how to chain. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I think Nurmagomedov wins. I think it's probably kind of a dreadful affair. I'm not sure why this is the top prelim. I mean, I guess it's all a free card and all we're going to get is like an extra long bathroom break in between. It's not like we're going to have Dana yelling at us to order the pay-per-view because look at this shit we just saw. But yeah, Nurmagomedov to win a decision, probably get takedowns in all 3 rounds, unless he dives right into a triangle like he did against David Zavada, which is a possibility. So, Dos Santos does have a decent submission game off his back if it comes to it, but that's the outside chance. Main chance is Nurmagomedov wins all 3 rounds by racking up 8 to 10 minutes of control time. We head now to the lightweight division for a matchup between Jamie Mullarkey and Guram Kutateladze. Mullarkey, the 28-year-old Australian, is 16-5 overall. He is 4-3 in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight win streak, those being a split decision win over Michael Johnson last July, and then a unanimous decision win over Francisco Prado at UFC 284 in February. He will look to make it 3 in a row at the expense of Kutateladze. The 31-year-old Georgian, that would be Georgia in Eurasia, not Georgia on the East Coast of the United States, is 12-3 overall. He is 1-1 in the UFC. Debuted back in 2020, winning a split decision over Mateusz Gamrot in what I believe was the UFC debut for both men. So that was a pretty auspicious debut, as Gamrot was one of the more highly anticipated signings by the UFC within the last 5 years or so. Did not return to the cage until last June, where he took on Damir Ismagulov and dropped the split decision in a very close fight. He'll be looking to get back on track here, and he is a strong favorite to do so. In fact, I think he may be the biggest favorite on the whole card. Kutateladze is minus 325, Mullarkey plus 275 on the comeback. Keith, got 2 guys here that both have impressed me compared to what I kind of expected from them when they got to the UFC. And now they meet. Who you got in this one, and how do you think it breaks out?
Yeah, this is an intriguing matchup. I'm glad it's on the main card. I think both guys deserve that. You know this. I've been a fan of Mullarkey. He's definitely like our kind of guy. He's not a great athlete, but he's so freaking tough. Very like Anthony Hernandez style. He isn't fast, but he fights at a great pace. It's not like a bonkers balls to wall. It's a controlled pressure. He's constantly taking ground, pushing his opponent on the back foot. He broke Devontae Smith with his volume. I thought he beat Faraz Ziam, or Ziam, how you say his name. But his limited athleticism and defensive skills has got him in trouble against the physical freaks like a Jalen Turner. He has a nice jab, constantly cuts angles well, sidestepping, L-stepping. Underrated power. I mean, he knocked out Devontae Smith, knocked out Kama Worthy. I love that he works the body. He will sneak in takedowns, has some good entries. He chains takedowns together well. He also has this like unbreakable will to keep the fight on the ground, keep working to get the fight there. His top control has really improved. That was one of the things we said about he get a takedown, but can't keep him there. I mean, he was good against his last fight against Prado from the top position. He would just work and work and work for 15 minutes, and he will break your will. He has cardio go the hard the entire fight, and you just put him in a position to win. Now, Kutateladze, I mean, this guy's good. I mean, he has a win over Matus Gamera. I thought he beat Damir Ismagulov. I thought he should have won that fight. He's very athletic. He's a good striker, really nice output. He attacks with combinations. He moves well, got some good footwork. He's a kickboxer who sets up his shots with feints. He uses a lot of like up and down feints, which you don't see much in MMA. Mixes punches and kicks together very fluidly. A lot of kicks, hard kicks to the body. He has a very fast high kick. He has some good power. He's got 7 KOs on his record. He's a good wrestler. More of a funk style wrestler, or like kind of Grammy, would just keep rolling with things. Strong takedown defense. We saw that against Ismagulov. Good overall just grappling. I mean, he's a European ADC champion in BJJ. He can get subs from his back. He showed against Gamrot that he's very hard to hold down. Though the one concern he didn't fade a little late in that fight. So that's the avenue for victory for Mullarkey is to, weather the early storm, make up for that athleticism that he can't match, and take over when Kutateladze gets tired. I think Mullarkey's really good at beating guys that are better than him on paper, and I think he'll give him a chance to win. However, I feel like Kutateladze is a lot more of that Turner mode. Now, not built the same way, but I mean that he's an elite guy. Where despite all that Mullarkey can do, Kutateladze is just too good of an athlete for him. I think he's better than Mullarkey everywhere. I think Kutateladze picks him apart on the feet. I think he gets takedown. I think he dominates on top. I think Kutateladze blows out Mullarkey. I don't think Mullarkey's so freaking tough that he might not stop him, but I think Kutateladze wins a lopsided decision.
Yeah, because Mullarkey has overachieved so much compared to my expectations of him when he came to the UFC. He definitely has a place in my heart as well. He entered the UFC in like 2018, 2019, right around the time Israel Adesanya rocketed to being one of the biggest stars in the sport. And that's not too surprising. I remember when Michael Bisping won Tough and the UFC went and had its first card in England in years. The UFC signed a ton of British fighters, and some of them were good and some of them weren't. And it was the same way for the rash of Australian, New Zealander fighters that got signed around 2018, 2019. Like some of them, I was like, these guys aren't going to stick around. And I was wrong on a couple of them. And they were Jacob Malkoun and Jamie Mullarkey, because neither of them looked great in their debut. And I looked at Mullarkey and I'm like,
yeah, same.
I was like, he's not big. He's not athletic. He's
pretty big. He's pretty big for the weight class. He's pretty big.
Maybe it's just the
He's
problem.
not Jalen Turner.
I think the problem is
yeah.
that like he had that stretch where he fought like Kama Worthy, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Turner in a row, and just like after fighting like three big black dudes in a row, I was like, oh
yeah, he's a pasty white dude.
Yeah. But even after his first couple fights, I was like, he's not terribly big. He's not super athletic. I mean, the only thing he's really got going for him is he's very young. So I suppose he could get good. And yeah, he turned out already to be better than I gave him credit for, and has improved. So I look for the ways he could upset Kutateladze here. He being such kind of a hard charging game guy who's generally hard to hurt really badly. There is the question of Kutateladze's cardio, especially considering that he hasn't been super active and he's had injuries and had bout cancellations. We could always see Mullarkey pull out just a wild comeback victory, but I'm with you. Like, I think that's not the most likely outcome here because I think Kutateladze is going to hurt him bad early. Mullarkey's a good striker. I think Kutateladze is a better striker, just faster hands, better natural power, probably more defensively sound. So even if they kind of get in the phone booth and really start winging, I think Mullarkey will probably get the worst of it. So even, if Mullarkey does pull ahead late, he might be prohibitively behind by that point, or we might even not make it to that point. You might be right. We might just get a quick knockout, but I'll take Kutateladze by decision here where maybe he has to hold on, but the final scores are not in question. Next up on the UFC on ESPN 46 main card is a flyweight matchup between Karine Silva and Ketlen Souza. Silva, the 29-year-old Brazilian, is 15-4 overall. She is 1-0 since joining the UFC out of the 2021 season of Dana White's Contender Series. She debuted last June at UFC Fight Night Volkov versus Rosenstrike, where she choked out Poliana Botelho late in the first round. After that auspicious debut, she's had almost a full year layoff. Actually, will be almost exactly a full year by the time she actually steps in the cage, but she'll be looking to make it 2 straight to open her UFC run against Souza. The 28-year-old Brazilian is 13-3 overall. This will be her UFC debut, but she comes in on a 5-fight winning streak, including 2 straight in Invicta. The most recent of those, a unanimous decision win over Christina Williams back in January. I'm a longtime Sherdog listener. I mean, I listened to the Sherdog radio network for a full decade before I worked for the site, as did Keith. I always loved the roundtables, the previews where they'd usually bring out a couple of people from other outlets who'd, get together with TJ DeSantis and usually Jordan Breen and kind of break down the fights. But for Brazilian cards, they would usually bring out Marcelo Alonso. And Marcelo Alonso, of course, is the OG of Brazilian MMA journalists and one of the OGs of combat sports journalists, period. I mean, the only people from name outlets that covered UFC 1 were Dave Meltzer and Marcelo Alonso. I mean, that's how far he goes back. But the great thing about him was he would always explain what Brazilian nicknames meant. Like, I can remember them just in his voice, like him trying to explain that Moicano was, like the Indian from the movie, like the last of the Indians. And it took about 30 seconds for everyone to, oh, it means Mohican. Okay, we got it. Thank you. Well, I'll do my best Marcelo Alonso impression for you. Ketlen Souza goes by Esquentadinha. It's hard to exactly translate, but it basically means like little hothead or like little one with a bad temper, like little firecracker type thing.
Yeah, I love
that's her. Yeah, it's great, but that's me doing my best in the absence of the living legend Marcelo Alonso. Odds here favor Silva, unsurprisingly. She's minus 225. Souza plus 190 on the comeback. Keith, I'll be frank. My tape study on this one was primarily limited to Portuguese idiomatic language. So tell me and the fans at home a little bit about Ketlen Souza.
Yeah, Ketlen Souza taking on, Karine Silva. I mean, Silva hasn't been in the UFC that long, so don't have too much about her either. But all right, I'll start with the newcomer. Ketlen Souza. She's a shorter fighter for the weight class. She uses a lot of movement, but a bit of a counter striker. She tries to move a lot and then land when her opponents chase her. She keeps her hands low and very out wide, where she relies a lot on her head movement. She throws winging shots. She has good power, and she throws a lot of calf kicks. And she likes to use her size, her shortness as an advantage by getting inside and busting up her opponent from underneath. She caught Christina Williams with a nice elbow inside near the clinch when in their last fight. But by the way, I thought the judges were terrible in that fight. They all gave Souza, I think they had like 4 rounds, at least 3 rounds each. I thought Christina Williams won that fight. Anyways, but back to this. She will sneak it in a takedown, but she's definitely not a wrestler. She's a weak defensive wrestler, struggles to get off the bottom. But she has showed an ability to, in her cardio to go 25 minutes. So 15 minutes shouldn't be that bad. Now, Karine Silva, a lot of her notes are going to be the same as her last fight, because I believe her last fight got canceled, if I'm correct. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I wasn't sure it was her last fight or 2 fights ago. Yeah, the Cachoeira fight was canceled.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it was the same notes I had from last time. She hasn't fought since. She's a boxer with some quick hands. She attacks with combinations. She throws straight shots down the pipe. She likes teep kicks. She's got a fast high kick. She's an okay wrestler. She chains takedowns together well. Some good back takes. She has 5 submission wins, including subs off her back. She almost got a go plot on Dana White Contender Series, which kind of cool, but she struggles to get back up. Now, I'm on Silva here. I think she's just better than Souza everywhere, including being bigger. So I think her volume beats Souza on the feet. Plus, I think if the fight goes to the ground, it would be more likely her sneaking the takedown too. So give me Silva by decision.
Yeah, I agree with you that, and I'm glad you said it. I kind of thought Christina Williams won their fight as well. There were good takeaways.
Did you see the score? Like they had the open score.
It was a 50-45 for.
I thought she won 4
Souza.
rounds. I thought she won 4 rounds to 1. I thought she lost. I think the 3rd round. I thought she won all the other 4. I could be wrong. It might have been the second. It was the one that she got elbowed. I thought she lost a round. I thought she won all the other ones.
And I agree. And they were individually some tough rounds to score.
Yeah, sure.
But there were solid takeaways from there for Souza. One, just, hey, she fought a 5-round fight at a moderate pace on the feet and on the ground, and she was fine. You mentioned that she has some unorthodox movement, but she used it and generally navigated the distance pretty well against a tall, rangy, pretty conventional kickboxer in Williams, and then obviously was able to take her down and put on some fight altering offense once she was there, like elbowing her and cutting her open. So even though I thought she lost as well, it wasn't a complete, it wasn't a bad showing for her necessarily. But from there, that meant she had the Invicta title, and I guess she could have stayed there and defended against some of Invicta's crop of flyweights, but instead she makes it here to the UFC, and I'm just not super high on her. Whereas I am kind of high on Karine Silva. Like you, I think she's probably better everywhere, or at least I think the striking at worst will be kind of a push, but I think Silva is much better on the ground. I think empirically she's bigger, fights longer and stronger. I just don't see many places where Souza is likely to have the advantage here, unless she ends up with the exact same 3 judges she did in her last appearance in Invicta, where I guess it almost doesn't matter what happens. She's going to win the decision. But no, Silva's looked impressive in her UFC debut. She looked impressive on the Contender Series. And while the win on the Contender Series, I don't know if Beyond Chiwi is great shakes. Choking out Poliana Botelho in the first round was pretty good showing. I like Silva to win an exciting fight here, and I wouldn't be surprised if she gets a finish. Like, just starts to put an accumulation of damage on Souza and gets maybe like a TKO from accumulated damage or a club and sub type thing late in the fight. But I think it's more likely that this one goes to the final horn because, hey, women's flyweight. So give me Silva by decision here as well. But I'm not surprised that she is such a big favorite, and I kind of think it makes sense. We stay in the 125-pound division and just switch to the other bathroom, as it is Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano. Elliott, the 36-year-old Missouri native, is 18-12-1 overall. He is 7-10 across multiple stints with the UFC. He is 5-6 in his most recent run with the UFC, starting with him winning season 24 of The Ultimate Fighter and the dubious prize of a shot at Demetrius Johnson. He is coming off a win. He took a unanimous decision over Tagir Ulanbekov way back last March at UFC 272. He'll look to make it 2 straight here against Altamirano. The 32-year-old native of Keith's favorite little town in Texas, Fort Worth, is 12-2 overall. He is 2-1 since joining the UFC out of the 5th season of Dana White's Contender Series. He's on a 2-fight win streak over Daniel Da Silva last August and a win over Vinicius Salvador this past March at UFC on ESPN, Vera versus Sandhagen. For what it's worth, I also thought he won his debut against Carlos Hernandez, so in my book, he should be 3-0 in the UFC right now. But what do I know? At any rate, he is not favored to make it 3 in a row here, as Elliott is minus 180, Altamirano plus 155. Keith, obviously, Tim Elliott, for one thing, Tim Elliott's probably the best fighter who's under 500 in the UFC right now. I think he's actually a very good fighter and just...
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, had a miserable first run. He's been out for over a year due to various reasons, including some personal drama, which I would absolutely bring up and have lots of laughs about if it did not involve a child. So let's just say he's had plenty on his plate over the past year, including the disintegration of Glory MMA and Fitness, the disintegration of his marriage. He's back here after more than a year off and 36 years old, and he's still almost a 2-1 favorite over Altamirano. Who gets it done here? Like, I feel as though there are a lot of storylines coming into this fight.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about Tim Elliott is, I mean, I guess we used to always joke about Tim Elliott, because of the way he would bend some rules and different that. So apparently he wasn't the cheater in the family.
Oh, now I understand why he doesn't think glove grabs were a big deal. He's looked into the face of cheating. And
that's as far as I'll make as a joke on that. I mean, it's a terrible situation, and in fairness, we don't know Gina Mazzani's side of the story or Kevin Kroom's side of the story, so there's always multiple sides to stories. And if they want to talk about it, I know at Sherdog will have an open invitation to either one of them. I'll interview them or Ben or somebody else there. Tim Elliott is a very unorthodox striker. There's no way to describe him. He's just so different than anybody else. Constantly moving, constantly bobbing, weaving, constantly just I don't know. Never know what direction he's going in. He avoids strikes by rolling with punches well, so you don't really catch him clean. He's got high volume, pressing an ungodly pace, winging arm punches at his opponents. Has no power, but a lot of it he does is obviously to land and score points, but also to set up his wrestling, which is a big part of his game. He can wrestle, just like his striking. It's so different than everybody else. It's definitely a funky style where he keeps the hips moving and scrambling, and he'll lose position to go for a submission. One thing about him I'll say in the past is he's shown like a low fight IQ and found ways to lose. Altamirano, yeah, you said that you thought he won his UFC debut. I'll say this. I thought he lost to Carlos Candelaria on the Contender Series. So I say that we'll call it even then.
Yeah, there you go.
Not that it wasn't a robbery or anything like that. Altamirano, he's a southpaw who drops his hands. He relies completely on head movement. He also rolls with punches, similar to Tim Elliott, That's about it because everything about Tim Elliott is so unique. But he rolls to kind of zap the power a little bit. Also, an insane output, can be super wild. He comes in, attacks with big combinations, big kicking game. He looks for knees inside. I mean, he crushed Daniel Lacerda with a knee inside. He likes to be one coming forward. He hated the pressure from Vinicius Salvador in their fight. He kept ducking his head when Salvador pressured, which is going to get him blasted with an uppercut or knee against someone better. He will wrestle. He kind of has a Michael Chiesa long arm reach snatch single style. He's got some weak takedown defense. He will play BJJ off of back. He has 4 submission wins. He showed some really good cardio. It's probably the reason why he beat Candelario by just being busier. One concern I have is he was hurt against Daniel Da Silva. So one thing I might know, if I mention, if he's on top, he's got pretty good ground and pound. We've said this, God, a million times. This isn't a betting show, but we know a lot of bettors watch the show, try to absorb as much information as they possibly can, and I respect that. I really do, especially if I was betting money. I can't imagine anybody betting on this fight. It just, unless you're going with Altamirano in an upset, it's so hard to trust what's going on in Tim Elliott's mental game right now. Like what's going on in his mind, his brain. Good.
I would say I'd be scared taking Tim Elliott as a favorite in any fight. Like
that's a good point. Let alone, that's a good point. Yeah. So it's really, really tough to take him. I am one of those people. I believe that you have personal life and things outside of fighting. Obviously, it's such a big mental game as it is. I think it can affect people. It's easy for me to say like, oh, he probably shouldn't have fought this fight. He should have pulled out. Yeah, well, I'm not paying his bills, so but it's something I thought of when I was breaking down this fight this week. But all that mental stuff aside, skill wise, I think this is a good matchup for him. This is a big step up in competition for Altamirano to Elliott. Elliott is a good wrestler. I think so. I'm just gonna go with what I see, the skills. I think Altamirano is gonna pressure Elliott, but I think that sets him up to get taken down. I think he walks right into takedowns, and I think because of that, Elliott gets some scrambles going. He lands shots and scrambles and controls from the top for a long period of time. So give me Elliott by decision.
Yeah, I like your whole breakdown there, and I like the way you brought up that mental focus and sometimes distractions or added focus and inspiration from outside factors, it can play a part. I mean, this isn't Rocky. Like most of the time, the better fighter wins. That's as simple as it gets. Or if an intangible plays into it, it's just that the more skilled fighter also has a tendency to make poor decisions. But you know what I mean? Like that's not to get too far off track, but I thought it was a really interesting comment that Corey Sandhagen made after his fight with Marlon Vera just a few months ago, where all the way leading up, Vera was like, I'm going to win this. I'm hungrier. I'm a man of destiny. I won't be beaten. Nobody's taking this away from me. And Sandhagen afterwards, and I don't think he was trying to throw a shade. He was just being sincere. He said, that'll only carry you so far. Like eventually you're going to get to where your opponent wants it just as bad as you do. And they happen to know how to fight better. And that's what happened there. But here, someone in Elliott who, like you mentioned, has a history of blowing fights that he should win. Yeah, you do have to worry about that, just considering all the other distractions, change of camp, obviously. Now with him, I don't think it's as bad because he always kind of split time between Extreme Couture and Glory. And I think he just probably went back to Extreme Couture full time once Glory exploded. But the marriage thing, just the fact that it's been 15 months, almost 15 months since he fought, and he's turned 36 in that time. 36 is old for a flyweight. But still, in the last 3.5 years or so. Like I mentioned, he's 7-10 in the UFC. He's 5-6 since Tough 24. Really, he had a long layoff for all of 2018 and most of 2019. And since coming back from that, he's 3-4. But the only people he's lost to are Davison Figueiredo, champ, Askar Askarov, top 10, if not top 5 guy, or top, Brandon Royval, top 10, if not top 5 guy, Matheus Nicolau, top 10 guy. Like, it's been pretty simple. He's lost to the very, very good fighters, and he's beaten everybody else. And that's kind of as simple as it is to me. I think Altamirano is good, but I think Tim Elliott, unless his focus is really off, his conditioning is really off, or his body is badly compromised just from age and wear and tear, I think he's better than Altamirano at just about everything. And Altamirano leaves himself open to the kind of things that Elliott does well. I loved your description of Elliott's striking and his wrestling is awkward. Like, I think like watching Tim Elliott fight, it almost feels like you're playing a UFC game and you took TJ Dillashaw, but then you took a broken controller. Like that, that's what it feels like to me. Or Dominic Cruz, and like you got a broken controller or a controller that like the battery light's starting to flash. Yeah. But got sneaky good wrestling, good transitions from wrestling to grappling. When he makes bad mistakes, to me, they generally tend to be on the feet rather than on the ground. I think he'll probably do fine in the striking against Altamirano. I think there are going to be a lot of scrambles, and I think he's probably going to get the best of those. Wouldn't even be too surprised, if he gets the tap. I mean, Altamirano hasn't lost by submission in a long time. The only person to beat him by submission is Jared Brooks, who, for what it's worth, is very good on the ground. But honestly, he's good on the ground in kind of the same way Tim Elliott is. So yeah, I'll take a little bit of an outside pick here, but give me Elliott by a late submission here, and something that hopefully will redeem at least his year of 2023. Next up is a lightweight matchup between Jim Miller and Jared Gordon. Miller, the 39-year-old New Jersey native, 35-17 with 1 no contest overall, 24-16 with 1 no contest in the UFC. So that's 41 fights. This will be his 42nd. He keeps passing the potato back and forth with people like Clay Guida for the most everything in UFC history. I forget who's ahead right now, but he is coming in off of a loss. He fought most recently in February, dropping a unanimous decision to Alexander Hernandez. Prior to that, he had won 3 straight in a bit of a late career resurgence. He'll look to get back on track here against Gordon, who steps in for Ludovic Klein on short notice. Gordon, the 34-year-old New York native, is 19-6 with 1 no contest overall. He is 7-5 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC as a former CFFC featherweight champ. He did join the UFC at featherweight, but he has been at lightweight for his last 5 fights, which have seen him go 2-2 with 1 no contest. The most recent appearance for him was back in April against Bobby Green. That ended in a no contest when an unintentional clash of heads left him unable to continue. So prior to that, he had lost a controversial unanimous decision to Paddy Pimblett that, if anything, probably raised Gordon's visibility and stock, as most observers seem to think he had beaten Pimblett. So he will look to hopefully keep elevating his profile in the UFC at the expense of the ageless Miller. He is favored to do so, despite stepping up on short notice, and despite being a former featherweight, he is nearly a 2-1 favorite at -180, where Miller is +155. Keith, we've previewed a lot of Jim Miller fights. He surprises us from time to time, but my notes haven't really changed very much in the last couple of years. Tell me who you think wins this one. I mean, off the cuff, I was prepared to pick Ludovic Klein to beat him. So this is definitely a different matchup, but tell me how you feel about this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think Klein was going to destroy Jim Miller. I thought Jim Miller just had like a guillotine chance. I definitely think this is a much easier fight for him. I think this is probably closer to a pick'em. Jim Miller is like the most veteran fighter of all time. Like, that's just, I know he did have the most fights and everything, but I just mean, like, in that professional sense.
Oh yeah.
He has slowed down, but to his credit, he has this like renewed power where he's hurting guys. I mean, even in a loss to Alex Hernandez, he hurt him in his last fight. He doesn't avoid shots well, which is concerning. And I'm still a little worried about his chin for all the damage he's taken over the years. But really, there's no signs of him being hurt. In fact, it's almost the opposite. Like I think he's been knocked out like twice in 52 fights and or something like that. Hernandez cracked him and he didn't stop. He didn't stumble or anything like that. He's a solid wrestler. He's a really good grappler. He's got 18 submission wins. He's got a great guillotine. I mean, his guillotine against Donald Cerrone is one of the best I've ever seen. Cardio has been a huge concern recently, and I'm definitely not confident in it. But in fairness, his cardio looked a lot better against Alex Hernandez, even on a loss. Like he didn't gas out. Jared Gordon, he's a minus athlete, but he makes up for it with output. Doesn't have many holes. He's pretty technical, very boxing heavy style. Keeps everything inside. He just isn't the athlete to make himself very dangerous. Not very explosive. He has some defensive holes. He drops his hand. He pillars. He can grind in the clinch. We saw it against Patty Pimlet. And he's an underrated wrestler. I mean, I was impressed when he out wrestled Chris Fishgold. He's a good grappler overall. He's got some good top control, good ground and pound. All the notes I said about Jared Gordon was taken from the Bobby Green fight because there's nothing much you can take from that because of how it ended early in the fight. This is a tough fight to pick. Weirdly as it sounds, I think both guys are underrated. Miller at this point in his career, is he's shown he's got a lot more than I thought he had. Like I thought his end of run in his career was just going to be this horrendous thing to watch. As the cool better say I've faded a guy. Like I faded Miller a long time ago, and I've regretted it. I'm gonna regret it again. The age, like I think he's more skilled than Gordon. I really do. Like his overall game, but I think the hand speed has declined and just like how many times you got to roll the dice on a guy. So I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna go Gordon, but I have zero confidence in my pick. Give me Gordon by decision. No, Gordon by decision.
Yeah, Miller does benefit from the change of opponent here. It's interesting because Gordon and Ludovic Klein are both former featherweights who at lightweight track as being a little bit on the short and compact side. But aside from that, they couldn't be much more different. Like Gordon, as you mentioned, not a standout athlete, whereas Klein is. Klein is a blisteringly fast athlete with tons of power. And I would have, obviously I didn't tape that fight because it changed a little while ago, but I'm confident that I probably would have come in picking Klein by first round knockout there. Whereas here, Gordon can beat Miller and he's almost a 2-1 favorite to do so, but he's probably going to have to ride it out for 3 rounds unless he just accumulates damage and Miller gets really tired. Having said that, that's kind of what I'm favoring to happen here. Miller has always been game and gritty and very blue collarish, but his body has just betrayed his ability to do that. Cardio used to be a plus for him. It's now a minus. His chin is still very solid, but as he's slowed, his defense, especially on the feet, has gotten more porous. I expect Gordon to win a fairly entertaining fight here. Miller's best chances of winning come if they spend a lot of time in transition. There are scrambles early in the fight where Miller is still fresh enough to snatch a guillotine or take the back. I think Gordon, though, is probably going to be smart enough to avoid those kind of situations. And if he pours it on later, maybe this thing turns into a rout late. So give me Gordon by decision here as well. The co-main event of UFC Vegas 74 is a featherweight matchup between Alex Caceres and Daniel Pineda. Caceres, the 34-year-old Floridian by way of Arizona, is 20-13 with 1 no contest overall. He's 15-11 since joining the UFC out of season 12 of The Ultimate Fighter. He and Michael Johnson, the only 2 remaining fighters on UFC roster from that season. He is coming off a win. He posterized Julian Erosa back in December at UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Strickland with a beautiful head kick in the first round. Prior to that, he had dropped a unanimous decision to Sadiq Yusuf last March. So he'll be looking to continue what has been a very hot streak for him over the last 3 or 4 years at the expense of Pineda. The 37-year-old Houstonian is 28-14 with 3 no contests overall. He is 5-5 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC as a veteran of everything. Bellator, PFL. He was a Fury Fighting Championship featherweight champ. He's fought in LFA. He's fought everywhere. He won his last time out, choked out Tucker Lutz in the second round at the Vera versus Sandhagen card back in March. Prior to that, he had a fight end in no contest against Andrei Fili, thanks to an inadvertent eye poke. Odds here, favor Caceres. He is -175. Pineda +150. Pineda's a guy. I mean, I'm very open about being a shameless homer for Houston. You see the Texans hat here, but I do try to be realistic about the limitations and upside of fighters. Pineda's on the downside of his career. He was always an elite fighter in the gym who underperformed in the ringer cage. He's popped for banned substances multiple times, and he's 37 years old. So he's definitely in competitive decline. He's always been undersized for a featherweight, even going way back into his career. He made up for it early on by having a wealth of offensive weapons, being aggressive and durable, and being a plus athlete. Like, mid-20s Daniel Pineda was fast and fluid. He has definitely slowed down at this point, but his wins in the UFC are still him doing Daniel Pineda things. Against Herbert Burns, he dropped the first round. Burns gassed out, and Pineda turned up the jets and put it on him. Against Lutz, he was fighting a bigger, much younger fighter, and just his opportunistic submission game. He has a very fast guillotine, showed itself. Basically, Pineda, almost like I would have said about Jim Miller a few years ago, even if their level of overall accomplishment is nowhere close, Pineda's best chances to win at this point lie in his opponent making a mistake. He's still a hard hitter, still dangerous in transition, still has quick back takes, deadly guillotine. His best chances to win would lie in Caceres making a mistake. Aside from that, most things here favor Caceres. I would say he has the advantage over Pineda in just about everything except maybe one punch power. And the problem for Pineda is that over the last few years, Caceres has turned into a fighter who makes bad mistakes less and less often. Like, he was kind of a wild card for his first few years in the UFC. He was basically a 500 fighter in the UFC through his first, 15 fights or so, dropping fights that he should have won just by, poor fight IQ decisions. But that's really become a thing of the past. He's become more of a finisher when he's in the right kind of situation. He remains a tricky grappler and kind of, funk style light wrestler. He's still not a hard hitter in terms of striking, but he throws good volume, and his head kicks at least are hard. Just ask Erosa. I think the most likely outcome here is Caceres just cruises to a decision where he probably pulls further ahead of Pineda as the fight goes along. Pineda's gas tank is not what it used to be. It wouldn't surprise me too much if Pineda catches Caceres with something, but again, that hasn't been Caceres recently. People who've beaten Caceres recently have just had to go out and take it from him like Sadiq Yusuf did, and I don't think Pineda has that in him at age 37. I'd love to be wrong. Love to see one more win at the highest level for one of Houston MMA's true OGs, but I'm taking Caceres here by decision.
Shame on you, Ben.
Yeah, I am ashamed.
Yeah, this is an intriguing matchup. I think it's closer than you're saying. I agree with a lot of things you said about Caceres. He's a pretty well-rounded fighter, southpaw, athletic, really moves well, elusive, nice snapping jab. He follows up his shots constantly by landing at weird angles because the way he flows. I wrote this in my notes recently. Better power than I give him credit for. Like he, because you look at him, you see this tall, skinny guy. You don't think of him as someone who can hit, but we've seen
tall, skinny guy who doesn't usually sit down on his punches very hard either.
Yeah. I mean, he blasted Julian Rosa in his last fight. He's got a very good kicking game. Can kick everywhere, body, legs, head. Very underrated grappler. In the sense where he's a very funk style grappler, so people really have a hard time with him because he's so different. But he, to his credit, to his detriment, he'll put himself in bad positions, searching for submissions that aren't there. Now, you said Daniel Pineda's at the end of his career at 37, and obviously that's true. But in fairness, he looks better at 37 than he did at 27. He's been on a nice run. He's a good athlete. He's explosive, a brawler with some quick hands. He looked particularly fast in his last match against Tucker Lutz. I mean, he was putting it on him. Good power, good submission game. I think you said he's a 100% finish rate.
Still.
Yeah, which is at this point in his career with that many fights is absolutely like incredible. It's one of those stats you hear. You got to double check it. Underrated wrestler, good at winning scrambles, strong topside jiu-jitsu, mean ground pound. He's got submission skills. I mean, I love his guillotine, and I'm not a fan of people who jump guillotine, but what was really impressive is he out-grappled Herbert Burns, which is a really big accomplishment in grappling. Yeah. Though Herbert Burns is gassed up pretty good, but he's got 19 career submissions, which is pretty incredible. Both guys have these late career resurgence. I've turned the corner on both guys. On Caceres and Pineda. Ben, you went against Houston. You got the Houston hat. You're rocking Houston. You said you're hometown guy. I obviously am a hometown guy with this rocking the Sure Dog hat. I'm gonna back your boy. I'm gonna say Pineda gets it done. Just because he's of the two, he's the one most likely to find a stoppage.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Based on his track record. I'm gonna say he does it. I say he does something late. I think he gets like a club and stuff. I think he can hurt Caceres. He jumps on a guillotine, and he gets a tap. Give me Pineda by third round submission and an upset.
I would love to be wrong. If I am wrong, maybe I'll wear like a Miami Dolphins hat on the recaps. I'd have to go buy one. That brings us to the main event of UFC on ESPN 46. A high-level flyweight contenders match between Kai Kara-France and Amir Albazi. Kara-France, the 30-year-old New Zealander, is 24-10 with one no contest overall. He is 7-3 in the UFC. He fought most recently last July, had a shot at the title then held by Brandon Moreno. He succumbed to a body kick late in the third round. Prior to that, he had been on a 3-fight win streak against a couple of high-level flyweights and the highly anticipated flyweight debut of Cody Garbrandt. So had been on a nice run. He will look to get his momentum back, confirm himself still a factor in the flyweight title picture against Albazi, who is climbing the rankings at rocket speed and probably looks at this as the signature victory he needs to get into the title picture. The 29-year-old Iraqi, by way of Las Vegas, is 16-1 overall. He is 4-0 since joining the UFC out of Brave CF, Bellator, and a few other like high-level promotions. He fought most recently in December, knocking out Alessandro Costa in the third round. That was at the Cannonier versus Strickland card. Odds on this one are a dead pick'em. Pick your outlet, Both guys are around -110 or -115, depending on where you're looking. But yep, this one's a dead heat. So Keith, tell us who wins this one, and if well, nah, that'd be an easy question to ask you. If one of these guys is UFC champ 3 years from now, I have the feeling I can tell who you guess it would
It's
be.
Albazi.
Yeah, it's Albazi because Car France has kind of been to the top of the mountain and had a look. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the UFC is rooting for Albazi to win. They say what you want about flyweight. It's they have a lot of the top guys as contenders. They haven't had the top guys fighting for the title because of the division's been held up because of, let's see, Demetrius Johnson being the champion forever. Then he goes to Henry Cejudo winning the title and vacating it. And then Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno fighting each other 87 times. So I think they are looking for new people. Car France has been, one of the top guys for the division for a long time, but Albazi obviously is the new guy, kid of the block with this incredible record. Car France is a well-rounded fighter. Not a glaring weakness when you look at Car France. He's a boxer, classic high guard defense, stays tight, accurate, works behind your basic shots with his tight boxing, nice jab, crisp cross. He's good at getting all the way in and all the way out without getting hit. He's got good movement, constantly moving his head off the center line, has a very slip and rip style where he keeps himself in position to land hard shots. And he's can crack. I've said this before. I think he's one of the hardest hitters in the division. I mean,
yes,
he knocked out Ajero Bontarine. He knocked out Cody Garbrandt. I mean, knocking out Greg Garbrandt. I might be giving a little too much credit for that one. But what you, in fairness, he didn't rush the knockout. We hurt Garbrandt, and he didn't just start throwing like berserker. He was seeing what he was throwing at, picked his shots well, showed real intelligence. I've talked about this before. He throws that Robert Whittaker high kick where he dips all the way to one side where it looks like he's going to throw a hook on that side, and he's throwing the high kick on the other side. And the reason why he dips like this, besides sneaking the high kick on the side, is you force your opponent, because if you're dipping this way, the big shots come from that side. They lean the other way, and then obviously you hand a high kick, you can knock someone out. He throws some of the best calf kicks. I was gonna say the division, but maybe all the UFC. Like his calf kicks are up there. Like they're not Justin Gaethje, it's Barbosa, but I mean they're really good. He likes to press the action. Brandon Moreno, he got off to a good start against Moreno. Moreno had a lot more success as the fight went on by pressing Car France back. Moreno also hurt him to the body, so that's concerning to see how he recovers from that. He isn't a good wrestler, but he showed against Askarov that he can defend enough to make his opponents tire. He likes to look for switches and spladles, which kind of goes with a more funk-style wrestler. Though he was recently submitted by Brandon Royval, which is obviously disturbing. Albazi, it's a lot harder to analyze Albazi's skills because he's faced lower competition. So his skills really jump off the page based on compared to his competition. I like him though. Don't get me wrong. He's very well rounded. He's a dynamic striker, technically sound, accurate, works behind a really good jab. Hard to hit because he bounces his head off the center line. Also, he's good at setting up angles for attacks. So he's kind of bouncing off the center line. I love how he works himself into range and then unloads hard shots when an opening is available. He keeps his distance when he wants with a nice check left hook, good calf kicks. He's a good wrestler. That's the big difference between him and Car France. Good timing on a reactionary double. If you start pressuring him too much, he can drop down on that. He has some takedowns from the clinch too. If he wants to get in there, he looks for trips and stuff. Strong top game, looks to advance, better position on the ground. Has some slick back takes. He has 8 career subs to his record. I mean, he subbed Francisco Figueiredo, who is a good grappler himself. And he can get subs. Look at his record. He's got subs from top, bottom. This is a really fun fight. I think this is absolute fight. Now, if you tell me one guy dominates the fight, then I'll say, okay, well, Albazi, like he wrestles he runs away with it. I just don't think it's like, I don't think it's going to be that way. I love this fight because I love both guys. I think they're both really good. The only really big advantage I see is Albazi being the superior wrestler. But Kara-France, he's showed against Askarov the ability to get back up to feet when taken down, make his opponent waste some energy. On the feet, both guys are really solid. You said you never really saw, but to Kara-France's credit, I mean, he's done it against better competition. But I think the odds are correct. Like this fight, I truly believe this is a coin toss. Like if you're picking one fight or the other, you're probably not making the most confident pick. At least I mean, maybe there's people sharper than us, or I should speak for myself, sharper than me, because I don't have a lot of confidence. I think both guys have their moments. I think we have a back and forth fight of the night candidate where we're on the edge of our seat. But I'm going to go with a vet. I'm going to go with Kara-France. He might have lost to Moreno, but if you watch that fight, he was up to the knockout. He was giving the champion a good battle up to that point. He was giving him everything, and I actually thought he was maybe even slightly ahead early. So I just trust him under the bright lights. Give me Kara-France to win a decision due to that jab and those calf kicks, and I'm sure he's going to get taken down, but I think he's going to find ways to scramble back up. That I just love that team. That team always comes really prepared. Kara-France, I'll say split decision.
Yeah, honestly, a splitter in this fight would not surprise me at all because I'm expecting close, difficult to score individual rounds where what you value in judging a fight affects which fighter you give it to. I like your breakdown of Kai Kara-France. I like that you said that he's basically good at everything. I would completely agree. Like the only part of his skill set that isn't even like well above average, I would say he's not blindingly fast by the standards of his division. Like he's fast, but in a division where the elite fighters are blindingly fast, he's just regular fast. I agree that probably his best individual skill is one-shot power. He has good power for a flyweight. And part of it is that he's a big flyweight. Like he doesn't track as big by the tail of the tape, but he's got a flyweight Dustin Poirier thing where you get up close on him and he's just got a big chest and torso, broad shoulders, again, for a 5'5" dude. And you look at him and you're like, okay, I understand why you were fighting in 135 and even 145 pounds back in Australia and Oceania early in your career. Like you're a big dude and it probably wasn't worth cutting to 125 until you were making enough money to quit your job. He isn't the fastest guy, but he maximizes what speed he does have by having just good, solid fundamental footwork, throwing straight punches, throwing in combination. I like that about him. He's clearly in a training situation where he's working with coaches that know his skill set well, that have worked with him for a long time and have worked to shore up his weaknesses. Like I feel as though with Eugene Behrman there at City Kickboxing that we've already said he's at worst the number 2 guy you call if you need to come up with a plan to help fighter A beat fighter B. Like he's
a stud.
I've had the feeling
who's number 1.
I just say it's probably him, but if you want to tell me right now that it's like Trevor Whitman or Eric Nixick, I wouldn't fight you.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't know if you were like giving a list. That's why I asked.
No, well, there's my list. Those are probably the top 3 right now.
Just some studs.
Like, I mean, Trevor Whitman's had a rough past year or so, but that comes and goes. He'll be back.
Yeah, his track record speaks for himself.
Yeah, I mean, he's usually the best coach in the room, even when he's just on the color mic for the UFC. I am very high on Albazi as an upcoming prospect, but this is a serious step up in competition. I mean, you could almost argue that the quality of his opposition has plateaued and dropped. Like he came to the UFC as a highly touted prospect. I mean, he was already like 13-1 or something. And he came out of Brave CF, which is a fantastic talent factory. He fought Malcolm Gordon and Jalga Shumagulov in his first 2 fights. And those are 2 guys that are probably better than their records. And then he moved on to Francisco Figueiredo, who's very much the lesser Figueiredo brother.
Yeah.
And in his last fight, I know Costa was stepping in at short notice, but he fought a guy that was in his UFC debut. This is a from going from Francisco Figueiredo and Alessandro Costa to Kai Car France is going to be that proverbial merging into freeway traffic on your bicycle. Like you're going 25 miles an hour on your bicycle, you think you're doing pretty good, and cars are whipping by at 80. And some guys are able to merge and others won't. But I know why this fight is a pick'em. Albazi has shown impressive athleticism, superb wrestling. He's a very good striker, but I'm going Car France here as well. Give me Car France by decision. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a split decision for the reasons I mentioned off the top. And that'll be a shame for the UFC. You know, I agree with you that they'd probably love to see a new face like Albazi, because Albazi, on top of everything else, has a pretty engaging personality as well. Like he's not Conor McGregor, he's not Sean O'Malley, but you know, he's an engaging guy, confident, cheerful, talks well. I mean, can talk a little shit. He hasn't really needed to yet, but he's the kind of guy that if he lamps Kai Car France, he's going to cut a memorable promo when they hand him that mic. But I don't think he's going to get the chance. I have Car France by decision here as well. That is it. The Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 46, Car France versus Albazi. I've been your host, Ben Duffy. He has been Keith Schillen. If this is your first time watching one of our previews, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to bring as good a mix of legitimate in-depth analysis and occasional historical or humorous asides as you'll find anywhere in this industry. Please do like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section, and we do enjoy going back and forth with people who think our picks are completely wrong or have some observations or even corrections about the show. We'd love to hear from you, and we definitely read them and respond. But most importantly, join us on the recap. We are live on the Sherdog YouTube page, usually about 15 minutes after the main event. Keith takes the captain's chair, and we will break down all 13 of these fights, knock on wood that they all make it to the cage, in reverse order, talking from that fantastic headliner all the way down to the PFL championship fight that never was in the opener. We'll talk about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. And the live chat is open that whole time. So we are taking your questions, comments, and hot takes in real time. Going back and forth with you. We have a growing community of friends that's hang out with us after the fights, and we would love you to be part of it. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy the fights.
Hey, Ben, real quick, one thing I want to say.
Yo.
If we're still live. Obviously, in America, it's Memorial Day weekend, so I want to wish everybody in America, if most people, if they're watching this, it's probably Memorial Day. Hope they have a wonderful Memorial Day to kick off the summer. The summer is always like the hottest time for fights, so we'll get excited for that. But most of all, I know I spoke for both me and Ben. Memorial Day is about those who sacrifice for our great country, who gave their lives for our great country. So obviously, we're both thankful for that.
Absolutely.
See you guys.